Hello and welcome to StudyIQ. In this lecture, we will discuss about Real Estate Regulation and Development Act of 2016. Why this act has become an important current affair is because recently the credit rating agency, it has come up with certain findings regarding this act. This act has brought in many positive changes in the real estate sector of the economy, and that is why this has become an important current affair now. So now after 1 year of its implementation, it is also necessary to look at what has the impact which has been caused by the implementation of this act. So in this lecture, we will see what are the impacts in the economy this act has caused, and also we will discuss about the challenges it faces and also the way forward for this act. But before we move on to the current affair part, let us see what is the background wherein which this act was implemented, and let us also discuss about what are the provisions of this particular act. So let us start. Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016. So before the implementation of this act, we will see that the real estate sector in India was highly unorganized. So it was unorganized and it was also underdeveloped. So unorganized and underdeveloped. Also, we must note here that the interest of the buyers or the consumers of the real estate products were also not protected. So there was no consumer protection properly implemented. So consumer protection was also less. So all this led to tensions and confusions in this particular sector, and the government initiated this act. If we look at an overview, this act aims at regulating the real estate sector in the country. Also, you should remember that this will include not only residential but also commercial real estate. So, commercial as well as residential real estate is included under this act. So this act aims at improving the transparency and accountability in the real estate sector, and increasing the transparency and accountability will boost the confidence of the buyers. So when buyers will have more confidence in this sector will grow. There will be increased demand in the real estate sector. So let us see what are the provisions under this act. Provisions. Let us see what is the applicability of this act. As we have already discussed, this act applies not only to residential property but also to commercial real estate. So commercial and residential real estate is included under this act. Second one is the establishment of Real Estate Regulatory Authority. So Real Estate Regulatory Authority. So under this act, there will be a Real Estate Regulatory Authority in the center as well as in each states and union territories. So in the states and union territories also there will be separate regulatory authorities. So what is the function or purpose of this authority? This authority will oversee the real estate transactions in that particular state or in that union territory. So real estate transactions are overseen. So this authority will act as a nodal agency, and this will coordinate the efforts of the government as well as the various stakeholders in the real estate sector. So the purpose will be to develop the real estate sector in the economy and also to provide the government with necessary advice or recommendation regarding the development of real estate sector. So this will act as a nodal agency. The third provision is with regard to the registration. So this deals with the registration of real estate projects as well as real estate agencies. So real estate projects and agencies. So let us see what are the criteria. So in case of real estate project, this registration is mandatory for all projects which exceeds an area of 500 square meters or a proposed more than 8 number of apartments. So this is mandatory for all the projects which have a planning area of more than 500 square meters, and also if the proposed building or real estate is having more than 8 number of apartments. So this is mandatory. And in case of agents, if a particular agent intends to sell any plot, building or apartment, it is mandatory for the agent to register with the authority. The next provision is with regard to the mandatory disclosure of all the information related to the project. So information regarding the project The information regarding the project must be compulsorily given. And who has to disclose these details? The promoters. In the context of Real Estate Regulation and Development Authority, the term promoters is very important. We will see it later in this lecture itself. What does this promoter mean, or who all are included in the term promoters? So you should remember that promoters are responsible for disclosing the information regarding project, and it is compulsory under this act. Now let us see what is the duties and functions of the promoter under this act. So promoter functions and duties. The first function of the promoter, as we discussed, is to disclose all the relevant information with regard to the particular project. So disclosure of all relevant information. Secondly, there should be an adherence to the project plan and proposals. Or it means that whatever is the project plan or whatever is the specification of the project, the promoter has to adhere with it. Again, the promoter is also responsible to rectify the structural defects. So structural defects must be rectified. And also it is a responsibility of the promoter to refund the money if there is any default. So refund if there is any default. Another important provision of this act is a compulsory deposit of 70% of the total funds. So this is a very important provision. Let us see what it is. So according to this provision, the promoter has to deposit 70% of the total funds that are collected from the allottees. Allottees means buyers. So how much ever amount has been realized from the allottees, out of that 70% of this fund must be kept in a escrow account. This escrow account should be maintained by a scheduled bank, and an important thing you should remember here is that the promoter can use this money, this 70% which has been kept in the escrow account, only for any purpose with regard to the project. So he cannot use this 70% fund for any other purpose but only for the project or construction of that particular project. So this is an important provision under this act. Another provision is the adherence to the declared plans. So the declared plans cannot be changed, and according to this act, if there is any change in the declared plans, a total of 2/3 of majority of the allottees has to agree with the change. So a 2/3 majority is required in order to make any changes in the declared plan or specifications of this project. We have seen what are the rights and responsibilities of the promoter. Now coming to the allottees or to the buyers, let us see what are the rights and duties of the buyers or allottees. First of all, the allottees can obtain stage-wise time schedule of the project. So stage-wise time schedule. This means that at every stage of construction, the allottee has the right to ask for time schedule. Again, the allottees have a right to claim the possession of the property as per the declaration of the promoter. So promoter might have informed the allottee at the beginning of the construction that the project will be completed within a particular period of time. So after the completion of that time, allottee has every right to ask the promoter for the possession of that particular property. Second right is with regard to possession. Third right is the allottee can ask for refund along with interest if there is any default from the side of promoter. So refund plus interest if there is a default from the side of the promoter. Another important provision of this act is the Fasttrack dispute settlement mechanism. Fasttrack dispute settlement mechanism. So you should remember here that earlier, before the implementation of this act, the consumers had to approach the consumers court in case of any grievance. So the provision was to approach the consumer court. But now there is a fast-track dispute settlement mechanism under this act. It means that the consumers can approach the RERA or the Real Estate Regulation Authority in case if there is any grievance for the consumers. And if the consumers are not satisfied with the verdict of the RERA, there is an option for appeal. So in case of appeal, the consumers can approach the Real Estate Appellate Tribunal. Here the Real Estate Appellate Tribunal has the powers of a civil court. So, if the consumers are not satisfied with the RERA, Real Estate Regulatory Authority, within 60 days they have to approach the Real Estate Appellate Tribunal, and the Appellate Tribunal is responsible to settle the case within 60 days. So, there is no time delay for the consumers, and therefore it is called a fast-track mechanism of dispute settlement. The next provision is with regard to the carpet area. So, under this act, a clear-cut definition of the carpet area is given. So, since the definition of the carpet area is given, the developers can sell only the carpet area, which means the net usable space of that particular apartment. So, net usable space is the carpet area, and only this can be sold. So, with this, the consumers will get a clear idea of how much space they have for utility. Another provision under this act is with regard to the punitive provisions. So, this includes penalties in case of any default, or in case of any contravention to the provisions of the act, or the orders of the authority or the tribunal. So, these are the provisions under the act. So, now let us see what are the benefits of this act. First of all, it brings a common platform for the buyers, sellers and intermediaries who are engaged in this sector. So, first of all, a common platform. The next one is a single regulator. So, under this, the whole real estate sector is brought under a single regulator. And also this act provides for proper grievance settlement mechanism. Again, another benefit is with regard to the accountability it brings. So, we have seen that the developers has to provide to the buyers the project details, layout plans, timelines, etc. This will bring in an accountability, and if there is any mismatch or default in any of this, the developers will have to provide for compensation. So, this will bring accountability. Again, we have seen that the 70% of the funds realized from the buyers should be kept in an escrow account, and this has to be used only for the construction of the project. So, this means that the diversion of the funds can be eliminated. So, diversion of funds is not possible. Again, this brings transparency. How? Because all the project details has to be disclosed. So, this will bring transparency in the real estate sector. Also, there is a fast-track dispute settlement mechanism. So, dispute settlement mechanism. It means the consumers are now more confident. They are willing to invest in the real estate sector, which will increase the demand for the real estate sector. Also, there are some concerns with regard to this act. So, let us see what are the concerns. First of all, there is a difference between the center and the state laws. So, in the center there is a different law, and in the states might have diluted or sometimes adopted a different version. Another concern is with regard to the definition of the promoter. We have already said that we will discuss about the term promoter in this act, and it is very, very important. So, under this act, promoter means anybody who is actively involved in the project. So, any active member in the project comes under the purview of promoter. So, this includes not only the developer, sometimes the landowner, the strategic investors, equity shareholders, etc. So, all of them will come under the term promoter. Another concern is with regard to clearances. So, sometimes there can be delay in clearances. So, it needs clearances sometimes from the union level, sometimes from the state level, and sometimes also from the local authorities. So, clearances may take time, and according to this act, if the developer makes any kind of default, the consumers can get refund plus interest. So, what happens? Sometimes it may not be the fault of the promoter or the developer. It can be because of some clearances delay. But who has to bear the cost of it? The promoter or the developer. So, this will put the developer into some kind of risk. So, that is also one constraint. So, in the beginning of our discussion, we said that this has become an important current affair because ICAR has come up with certain findings. So, that is the most important thing in this session, and we are moving on to the current affair part. So, let us see. So, let us quickly see what was the background at which this act was enacted. As we already said, the real estate sector was highly unorganized and also fragmented. What were the problems in the real estate sector earlier before the enactment of this particular act? The most important problem with the real estate sector was that there was delay in completion as well as possession of the project. So delay was the main problem in completion and possession. Also, the builder-buyer agreement always favored the builder. So the agreement were favorable for builder. Another drawback was the prevalence of cash transactions. So the property transactions were mainly made in the form of cash. So all this had led to the losing of confidence of the buyers. So buyers lost the confidence. Again, the prices were also elevated. So elevated prices has led to a decrease in demand. We have already seen when the price is high, the demand will come down. So this principle applies here also. Earlier, because of elevated prices, the demand of the real estate sector were also down. So on the backdrop of all these factors, this act was enacted. And now let us see what is the impact this act has made on the Indian economy. What are the impact of Real Estate Regulation and Development Act? The most important positive impact was in relation to the terms of completion of the project or possession of the project. The completions or deliveries became proper or on time. So delivery or completion of the project. So in order to find the improvement in the delivery or in the completion of the project, 11 sample builders. So these 11 sample developers has projects all over India. And according to the study, there was 30.02 million square feet completions in the year 2015. So in the year 2015, it was 30.02 million square feet project completions in India. And when it comes to 2017, that is after implementation of this act, the study says that the project completions has increased to 45.51 million square feet. It is in the year 2017. So according to the study, the completion has increased or the project deliveries has increased, and also these are within the time frame. Secondly, an important impact is that RERA addresses the builder-buyer agreement issues. The builder-buyer agreement issue. So under this act, it prescribes a model agreement. Model agreement. So here you should remember that this model agreement is brought out by states. So different states will have different model agreements. And what is the purpose of this model agreement? The model agreement aims at bringing the builder and buyer to a equal platform. We already said that one of the major concerns with regard to this act was that we already saw that before the implementation of this act, the agreements were favorable to the builder. So now with this model agreement, it tries to make an equal platform or to create an equal platform for both the builder as well as for the buyer. And this model agreement also aims at building a sense of responsibility from the part of all the stakeholders. Another impact of this act in the economy is that it has brought out transparency and accountability in the real estate sector. We have already seen how this act has brought in transparency and accountability. So all this has increased the confidence of the buyers. And this has resulted in increase in the sales of real estate. So increase in sales with regard to value as well as volume. Value and volume of sales in the real estate sector has gone up. Some challenges which this act faces. First of all, the penal provisions in the act. We have seen there will be penalties in case of default or for non-compliance with the act. So the penal provisions in the act has brought in a fear in the minds of developers. Another challenge is with regard to understaffing. Understaffing here means that in order to implement this act properly, a certain amount of human resources should be dedicated for this. So there is understaffing, and for that reason the act is not able to be completely implemented or made its full advantage. Another challenge is the absence of draft sale agreement format. So there is no draft sale agreement format. Also, because of all these regulations, the real estate sector, the developers in the real estate sector are making some delay in launches. They are not easily launching new projects. So because of all these regulations, the launching has also become a issue. So what happens when there is less launches? The supply will be less. So supply less than the demand, and this will lead to increased prices. Again, another challenge is with regard to states. Almost 20 states have interim or final RERA authority, and each state has some different diluted or some different versions of this act. Another challenge is with regard to the escrow account, wherein which 70% of the total realization has to be locked in for construction purposes. So what happened earlier was that the developers used the money which was realized from interim sales. So the developers used the money realized from the interim sales for funding projects. So now they have to keep it with the escrow account. Way forward or solutions to overcome these challenges. Let us see what are the solutions. And if you are writing a descriptive answer, you should remember that the impact of this act on the economy is very important, and they will also ask you regarding the challenges. Impact, challenges and way forward. These three things are very important. There are less chances that the question will come with regard to the provisions in the act. Sometimes they can ask you, but more is the chances to ask for the impact, because in exams, especially like UPSC exams, the question would be to analyze the impact of this act in the economy and to suggest measures to overcome the challenges. So these three things is very important. You should have an understanding. It doesn't mean that you have to by heart what is the impact or what are the challenges or what is the way forward. No, you have to understand what is the issue, what has happened or what is the impact of the issue, and also you should be able to suggest some measures to improve the act. Now let us see way forward or solutions. The first important step would be to align the state RERA with the central rules. So state and center should have a uniformity. So the uniformity will bring in lesser confusions. This will bring not only uniformity but also transparency, and also there will be a structure all over the country. So the analysis also becomes easy. Here you should also note that suppose a particular builder or developer, say for example builder ABC, if this particular builder has projects all over India, suppose he has projects in 10 states. 10 states might have 10 different rules of RERA. So it becomes difficult for the builder, that is for the ABC, to implement projects or to launch new projects. So if all over India there is a uniform set of rules, it becomes easy for a developer to launch projects all over India. We have seen one major challenge is with regard to staff or understaffing. So this problem also needs to be rectified. Another suggestion of ICRA is that the state should try to create an environment and infrastructure which will create ease of doing real estate business. So infrastructure and structural ease should be there for real estate sector so that they can easily do the business. So what is the impact of easing the business environment for them? This will increase the demand. When doing business in the real estate sector becomes easy, the developers will be able to bring in more projects, and this will increase the demand of the consumers. So the developers becomes more efficient. The cost will come down because of the ease of doing business. So they will be able to sell their projects at lesser cost and within the time gap. So this will boost the demand in the economy of the real estate products. And what will happen when the demand increases? This will lead to more number of employment in the economy. There will be more employment generation. More people will be employed in the real estate sector, construction, etc. And this will lead to growth of the economy in terms of GDP. Also, you should remember that some major sectors that support the real estate sector belong to the core industries. So some core industries like the steel, cement, etc. highly support the real estate sector. So these core industries will also develop with the development in the real estate sector. The ICRA also suggests that there should be administrative efficiency and political willingness in order to promote the growth in the real estate sector. Political willingness and administrative efficiency. So these are the suggestions put forward by the ICRA in order to develop the real estate sector.